And a huge welcome, and thanks so much for joining us for our third webinar in our series. And an extra big thank you to all of you who came along yesterday to support the team at our historic first home game. An amazing day for the Durham women yesterday, and it was so special to meet so many of you from our Women's Cricket Network in person. A definite real buzz around the ground, and so good to see so many of the men's team there as well, with head coach Ryan Campbell supporting our women. Whether you're with us at the ground or watching on YouTube, we really do feel or hope that you felt part of something very, very special yesterday. For those who couldn't make it, don't worry, you won't have to wait very long at all, because our next home game is this Sunday against the Blaze, Nottinghamshire's team, at a 10:30 match start. And for those who did witness yesterday, obviously we know the team put in a fantastic performance for their first ever professional match. And yes, we came away with the win. A brilliant start to what's going to be a very exciting season ahead. Now, for those of you that are new to the Women's Cricket Network, a huge welcome. The network is very much all about connecting, supporting and celebrating everyone involved in the women's game, whether you're a player, a coach, parent, volunteer or a fan. Through the Women's Cricket Network, we're creating more opportunities, sharing stories, offering pathways into the game and making sure the women's and girls across the region feel part of something bigger. It's your space to grow, to connect and to get inspired, no matter where you are in your cricketing journey. We've got lots more exciting things to come as the season goes on, but tonight's webinar is no different. So settle in, get involved, and thank you very much for being part of this fantastic community. So tonight's theme, which will make sense when I introduce our guests to you, match day reflections, obviously, and confidence building in female athletes. I'm going to be chatting to our three guests about how they reflect on and analyse games and performances, both personally and within their teams. We're also going to explore how they like to give and receive feedback and take a closer look at something that many of us can relate to, the tendency for female athletes to be a little bit too quite self-critical. We're going to be asking about how mindset can impact performance and growth, and more importantly, how our guests work with athletes or how they were worked with themselves to build real lasting confidence, both on and off the field of play. So before we get into it, just a quick reminder, the Women's Cricket Network is very much here for all of us. We'd love you to get involved. Pop your questions in the Zoom chat as we go through the next half hour. And don't be shy about suggesting topics that you'd like us to cover in future webinars. So that is enough of listening to me waffle on. I'm going to now introduce our fantastic three guests here. And I've got to start with the boss. She's a Durham native. Dani Hazell has been at the forefront of women's cricket across the country and the world. She, as a player, was a three-time Ashes winner and part of the World Cup winning team back in 2017. After retiring, her coaching career took off. She made a huge impact as head coach of Northern Diamonds and also led the Northern Superchargers to great success. I'm glad to say, though, she's back home now, leading our Durham women's team in their first professional season and helping us find the next generation of female cricketers in the North East. We're really lucky to have Dani with us so soon after that momentous game yesterday. I'm glad to see that you're wide awake, Dani. There wasn't big celebrations last night, but great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm also thrilled to welcome her boss, our Director of Cricket here at Durham, Marcus North. Marcus returned to the club in 2018, replacing the well-respected Jeff Cook in his role. He's a former player of our club. Marcus also took on the role at Durham Cricket, having been Chief Exec at North East Premier League club South Northumberland. Born in Australia, but we won't hold that against him. He appeared for his country in 21 tests and 2 one-day internationals, as well as captaining Western Australia in his career. I'm pleased to say that he's an adopted Geordie now, and he's joining us from Worcester. So we're all on tour now. And finally, I'm delighted to welcome a good friend of mine and a very special guest who's continuing to add accolades to her athletic CV. Paula Radcliffe is one of our greatest athletes and one of the greatest female marathoners of all time. A career which includes setting the women's marathon world record back in 2003 with a time of 2:15:25 that stood for 16 years. a three-time winner of both London and New York marathons and world champion in the marathon in Helsinki. Most recently, though, which is why she might look jet lagged, but she doesn't. I look way more jet lagged than she does. She's just added Tokyo and Boston to her marathon majors list, so is now the proud owner of her 6-star medal in marathon majors. Paula's a commentator for the BBC, as she will be in London for the marathon this weekend, and continues to inspire future generations of athletes and runners. Wow, what a biog! What a start to our webinar tonight. So I'm just going to start. I mean, a huge welcome to all three of you. Thank you so much for your time this evening. But let's not hang around. Danny, I mean, I've got to start with you. Reflections on that incredible win yesterday.
What, you don't want to talk about my marathon running?
No, we'll get on to that. That will come.
Yeah, it was obviously it was a massive day for the club. From one of my coaching days where I probably felt the most nervous, to be honest. It was, it's Durham, as I've said all from the beginning, is home for me. So it kind of had that little bit extra edge on it. But yeah, it was a perfect day, barring a little bit more sunshine. It was a perfect day, really. The support that we had, and then the performance that the girls put out there was brilliant. And it was lovely to get off with a bonus point win, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marcus, I mean, yesterday was the culmination of such a busy year for you and the team, building a professional team from scratch. It must have been, I know it wasn't all about you, but it must have been a proud moment for all of you.
Yeah, I think for the whole club, such a historic moment. Like I said, there was a lot of hard work over the last 12 months, and that certainly wasn't just me. There was a lot of people that have invested so much into this process, and I guess I wasn't as nervous maybe as Danny or the players might have been yesterday. It was, we saw each other before the start of the play when we had the guard of honour, and all the young kids around. It was just such a sense of pride that we came to that day of our first game. So there was a lot of build up, but it was a privilege and an excitement to go and watch them play and be able to take the field in their Durham kit, representing our great county. So, and to put such a dominant display on was so impressive. I was lucky enough to be in the changing room at the end of the day when Danny addressed the players, and she made a great point where there was so much, not distraction, but there was so much on that game. It was, there was speeches before the game with, the first 11 players to represent Durham. The hype, the media, the spectators. There was so much there to kind of add to their nerves really for the game. And I think a lot of respect and kudos goes to Danny and the way she coaches and her manner, and Holly as captain that kept them quite balanced and relaxed. And I think that showed with the performance they put in, which was just topped off a brilliant day one for Durham women.
Yeah, didn't it just? And I think, Danny, performances like 17-year-old Grace Thompson taking that first wicket on a senior debut. I mean, that's what Durham's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, before the game, I said Grace will do something like that. And that's a real Grace thing to do. But all the girls, really, they, like you say, they kept themselves externally calm, whether they were, ticking inside a little bit more. But we try to just keep things as similar as to what we normally do. And yeah, credit to them how they went out there and they performed how they did, really.
And speaking of firsts, Paula, just back to Boston, I mentioned that you just obviously finished your 6-star, which for anyone that doesn't know is the 6 marathon majors. I mean, not many people can say they've won a few of them and finished third in one as well. But for you, Boston was where it started, wasn't it, as well? 1992 was your first global title as an 18-year-old. What did that do for your performance and your confidence? Was it a case of I belong on this stage now?
It was that confirmation. It was significant for me because I'd finished 15th the year before, went out to Boston. It snowed the day before the race, 2 days before the race, which was great for me because I love racing on the snow. But I think what that victory did most was give me the confidence that I could make it as a full-time athlete moving forward. Bearing in mind I was just turned 18. I was doing my A levels that summer, going away to university. So it basically cemented in my mind the belief that if I kept working hard through university, then I could have a chance to actually make a career out of what was essentially my hobby and what still remained my hobby all the way through. But it did give me that confidence to be able to kind of set those goals and move on from there.
And was that going through your head at all in that final marathon or road marathon that you've now declared is going to be your last, which it won't be?
Well, I basically just said I was done with the road because I was frustrated with being in better shape to run, and then my body letting me down a little bit in terms of just not being able to cope with the pounding on the road anymore. So yeah, a lot of things went through my head. I think for me, there was a nice symmetry in the fact that that's where it started. That now pretty much I worked out exactly, given that Isla is exactly born a month later than me, and this is a month later than the World Cross Country. It was pretty much exactly the same age. She's exactly the same age now that I was then.
And
so that made me feel a bit.
Just for everyone.
Yeah, sorry, that's my daughter Isla. So that made me feel very old running around. But at the same time, it's weird because it doesn't feel like 33 years by any means. And I think for any young girl, young boy setting out on that journey, kind of that time can go really quickly. So you've kind of got to seize it and make the most of it, but also take the time to really appreciate it while you're in it.
Yeah. Well, listen, the firsts keep coming because you haven't seen this, but there we go. You were awarded first place in the vet 50 to 54 at Boston.
Oh my God.
Look at that. So yeah, you can put some tulips in it or whatever you do. I'll give you that one later. But look, you know, when you all look back now, and you all understand the world of high performance, both when you were in it as players and performers, and now as coaches and administrators, could each of you find one or two things that were your superpower? You know, whether it be confidence, you know, your competitiveness, your physiology. What is there like one thing? If I start with you, Danny, is there like one thing that was your superpower as a player?
I think that's probably competitiveness. I mean, I would openly say I probably wasn't the most skillful person in the world, skillful cricketer in the world, by far, but I probably had that little bit more competitive edge about me, and that's just probably from where, you know, how I was brought up, and the area that I was brought up in. And so yeah, I think it's just really, that's probably my super strength, going back to, you know, bit of grit, bit of northernness, and yeah, probably. And have you taken that as well?
Have you taken that into your coaching as well? Is that something that you try and impart onto the team, or is competitiveness something that is difficult to kind of teach?
Yeah, I think sometimes I've probably had to dampen, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I've had to dampen that down slightly. But internally, like, I would still be ticking quite hard in terms of being competitive. It's just, you know, working in a team and working with people who, some people are very different to the way I operate, and the way I operate as a player. So it's just about making sure that I get that competitive edge across in the right way. Can come across as potentially being, you know, quite aggressive and wanting to win, but equally some people would find that, you know, quite daunting. So, and that's probably the biggest thing I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years. You know, it's how you communicate with people, and how, you know, how the different sorts of people can take things in different ways, really.
What about you, Marcus? What was your superpower?
Yeah, I don't know about superpower. I kind of look at my career in two halves, where I was quite fortunate, where I was quite talented as a young kid. And, you know, in terms of cricket, I was the one that always scored the runs, took the wickets. So I found my progression quite natural and quite easy, without sounding arrogant. I guess it wasn't until I got to about 19 or 20 where it kind of kicked in that talent and that natural talent was nowhere near enough. And I guess my my desire to get the best out of myself every day, really took over. And I think if you're looking at what I learned through my professional career as an adult, that was the one thing that kind of defines high performance for me. Is just it doesn't matter if you're, an under 15-year-old girl, whether you're in a job as a 30-year-old. High performance is getting the best out of your day every single day. That's my interpretation of it. And it took me a little bit. It took me to 20 years old to realize that. And that was through having a conversation with a very well-respected, famous Australian cricketer, Justin Langer, who didn't have a lot of natural talent, but his work ethic was as high as I've ever seen anybody. And that was the quality that he kind of installed in me through just mentoring and having discussions. So, yeah, getting the most out of me in my adult years was something that enabled me to hopefully be the best I could.
Yeah, and I mean, competitiveness is probably up there in the top 3 if you were describing Paula Radcliffe. So, what would you say, Paula, looking back on your career and something that you...
I mean, I think both of those points raised from Danielle and Marcus are really, really strong. I think I've naturally got a high pain threshold, which is also an advantage. It's certainly a little bit of a superpower because it's always going to hurt at some point, particularly in events like the marathon, and you've got to be able to block that out and continue. I think loving what I do is really important. And I think also just genuinely wanting to find out how good you can be. So not setting limits that you're particularly aiming for. I would never set a time as a goal. I would set to run faster than a certain time so that there was no finite limit being set on the performance. And then I think also just being a bit stubborn and a bit kind of bloody minded about I'm going to keep trying a different way around if you don't get there the first time. And that's why I think that feeds into what Marcus is saying. If you don't get there the first time, most people don't. You've got to be prepared to keep changing it a little bit, trying a different way and working around different methods, working on your weaknesses, and just keep persevering until you actually get there.
Yeah, and actually that's probably relevant for what I wanted to move on to chat about, how particularly bringing it back to the games that you've got ahead, Danny. They're going to come thick and fast, both the men's and the women's. But what do you do as a coaching team and in between? You're going to have 3-4 days between yesterday and the next game on Sunday. Training wise, is there much you can do physically, or are you working on skills? Are you working on coaching? Are you working on attitudes and confidence?
So I suppose we probably work backwards from kind of 2 or 3 days out. So today was very much a rest and recovery day. Not just physically, but I think mentally from yesterday it was a really full on day for a lot of people. And then tomorrow we go back into training. Tomorrow will be very much kind of skill based, kind of learnings from the other day. Bit of a reflection for individuals, get individual chats. And then one day out from the game, it's very much kind of not talking too technically. It's about making sure that they're more mentally ready to go into the game again the following day. Looking into the opposition, not massively. I think it's an awareness. Some people will delve into it more, some people won't. But I think, we're trying to instill them kind of professional behaviours as well, like what is good for you, what is them 1%ers that can make you better. Like from the start, we said we do have generally a very young group. So a lot of it is still that learning curve. But I think, working back from game day, very much confidence build the day before. Day before that, it's skills, what we learned from the previous game, and then we get to game time. It's about trusting yourself and going for it.
And what about you, Paula? I mean, I know obviously once you moved to the marathon, it was less races in a year, maybe 2 major marathons a year, but way back to when you were 17, 18 and you're on the track, and then a track season you might do, I don't know, 15, 20 races. I don't know what, I'm a sprinter, so I did more. But what was your kind of reflection straight off the back of a performance, either good or bad? If you had a bad performance, how did you pick yourself back up?
I think it's really important. I don't know whether that's something, to be honest, I can't identify when I picked up this. I probably picked it up a bit from my parents and from my coach, Alex, certainly, in terms of basically stems back to the old, you control what you can control and you don't worry about what you can't control. So out of something that's a little bit disappointing or hasn't worked out as planned, I would try and process those emotions, not carry them forward with me. So not like kind of shut them away and not deal with them. I would deal with them, let them out, angry, upset, whatever it was, and also learn what I could from it in terms of what went wrong, what can I improve next time, what can I do next time to make sure that doesn't happen, and then just try and move forward with those learnings. So kind of process it, get rid of what I didn't need and not have that dragging me down anymore, but move on with the learning so that I can be stronger and try and avoid the same mistakes being repeated, because bad luck's going to happen all the time in sport, but repeating the same mistakes is something that we can avoid.
Well, to be honest, Emily, that was your question pretty much answered there, because Emily was asking how do athletes put a poor performance behind them? And I think you eloquently put that. I've also got another one quickly for you, Paula, from Steph, who is a big fan. You've just run Boston Marathon. She's got the bruised calves to prove it. I can vouch for that. And the Durham women's team have just played their first historic game. And I guess you've probably touched on this already as well, but how do you recover, refocus and go again for the next big event?
I think just keeping the eyes focused on the main point of your season, and kind of most of the events before that will be a stepping stone process to that one. So again, you want to see what's worked, what hasn't worked, and kind of learn from that and move on. But also I'd always be starting my season with the main points for that season. So it may not be the whole year, but that season, that would be the main goal. And everything else towards that would be a kind of learning process, checking where I was, seeing how things were going, and then modifying that or not modifying if things were going well, and just staying on that trajectory towards the main goal.
And I think I touched on this when we had the women's launch, when it's so difficult to kind of think about Danny and the team that have a long season ahead of many, many games that are all very important. Whereas obviously, like you said, Paula, as an athlete, your focus might be whether it was a marathon major that year or a world champs or an Olympic games, and everything else has to build up into that one culmination of that one day. I guess there isn't a question there, though, is it? It's just very, very, it is very different. I think one thing that we've got from Rob, which is an interesting question, a slightly different tack. How can parents and partners support a player or an athlete lacking in confidence? Should this be left to coaches, or is there something that they can do? Danny, have you got any thoughts on that?
My first thought is make sure you charge your phone before you do this. I think, when you're going home, I know my husband probably, 10 years of playing cricket, he probably heard everything that I went through and every emotion, and it is hard to not take that home as well. But I think the support that you have at home is imperative to what you do, and as coaches, of course, we're there to support as much as we can. I think from my point of view, there's not, I feel like I've been through a lot of situations that many of these girls are maybe going to go through over the next kind of few years. And it's not to say, this is what I did, don't do it that way. But I think if you can help anybody kind of, in their decisions slightly, or just nudge them in the right direction, then as long as your decisions, and long as what you're saying always comes from a good place, then you're only trying to help them, right? Like, you're not trying to make anybody better. Like coaching, anything that you say, you're not trying to make anybody better. Like, you're trying to make them better every day. And it's their career. You're just there to support. And, you hope that whatever level they get to and as far as they get, that you played that little bit of a part. But it's their journey to go on, and we're just here to nudge them when we need to.
Yeah.
Alison, can I jump in there? Just, I've got an answer as a dad, right? So
I was going to ask both of you, Paul, as parents.
It's obviously I've got a daughter and son that both play, and I guess one of the things that I didn't do at the start, where I'd be the dad that would, you watch them play, or you get them in the car and straight away you kind of oh, why'd you do that?
Nice.
Or even like you did really well. Actually save it, hold that in and just make sure that car journey isn't always about critiquing their performance, good or bad. Put some music on, have a bit of fun, sing some songs. You want that to be, you want kids, it's a time of their life. They want to be enjoying their sport, having a great time. And for me, my biggest learning was just let them have their journey home. If your son or daughter hasn't done that well, they know they've had a bit of a bummer game, or they haven't made runs, or haven't got wickets. And the last thing they want is dad or mum kind of questioning them about it. And there's a time for it. It might be the next day where you go, give them time to reflect and say, oh, how do you think you went yesterday? And they figure it out for themselves. And I think, certainly from my lived experiences, that's probably been a better way of doing it with my kids. But yeah, that's just, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, no, spot on. And actually, Paula, if you're happy to share, Boston was great, wasn't it? Because you had both Isla and Raf last minute decide to do the 5K, and I get to see competitive mom then, and it's fun. But everything Marcus has just said, I think it's reflected in you, isn't it? Enjoyment. You just want your kids to be enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, particularly something that has brought me so much and that I've loved doing. It's an experience that I want their experience of that to be as great as mine was, and I want them to love it. And I also, to Marcus's point, recognize that most kids are very different. There's not a one size fits all way that you deal with them. Some of them might want to talk about it straight away, some of them don't. And my two are extremely different. One wants to take a lot of advice and to chat about things a lot. The other one just wants to do it on her own and absolutely do everything by herself. And she'll have to come to me to ask for anything. So it's kind of balancing that. But you're absolutely right. The takeaway from Boston for me was just seeing my son in his first experience really of a mass road race like that, just grinning from ear to ear from start to finish the whole way around. And I'm sure he still had more left in the tank afterwards. But that's something that he has to realize himself. He has to say, you know what, I actually did feel like I could have run a bit faster at the end of that. And he's got a lot of time to grow from there. And I remember my coach saying to me all the way through the juniors, he used to say, I don't want the best junior. I want the best senior in the future. So I want there always to be somewhere else to go. I don't want you to be at the top of your capacities as a junior, as an under 17, as an under 15. I want you to keep developing and keep growing with that. And the best years come in the years that count the most.
Yeah, and I think that was my takeaway yesterday, Danny, watching the girls, seeing all the social stuff afterwards. That, like, I don't think there was, and yes, there were smiles at the end, but they literally were smiling from the moment they went through that guard of honor. Like, yes, game face was on, but even just, and one of the best quotes I was reading in one of the reports was about how well drilled Durham look, which is obviously credit to you in the coaching staff. But I think that must have just given you so much pride in how much the girls loved it yesterday.
And that, that's probably one of the strengths of the group. They're all very good mates, and they've been together through all this, and that's just them naturally. That wasn't a show. That was, they're a really good group of people, but equally have a very competitive edge to them. Right? They absolutely were, fully wanted to win that game, and it was, that was the main focus. But I think, it's to play the game with a smile on your face. That's all you can ask of people. You can't, you'll win some, you'll lose some. But I think if we keep coming back to why do we actually play the sport? Why do we do this? We do it because we enjoy it. There's tough days, there's really good days, and there's really bad days, and there's ones in the middle. But we come back to, we enjoy it. And then, you'll turn around in however many years it might be, and you're retired and you think, wow, it wasn't all that bad while you're out there playing cricket. So yeah, it's how we can keep them smiles on their faces as long as we can.
I've got another quick question just before we start to wrap up from Elizabeth. Was the Bladen races sung yesterday? Now, for any of you listening, Paula, that includes you, the tradition of the men's team is to bang the hell out of their bats in the changing room afterwards if they win, singing the Bladen race. So over to you, Danny.
No, but they've took their own stance on this now.
Okay, cool. So there is a song.
What are they? Is it called? Is it the Pink Panther thing? The Durham? I'm not going to go through it all for you. But yeah, but
Durham,
that's the one.
Whoa. So is that
if I'm being honest, it took me by surprise as well. But I loved it, so I just roll with it. And if that's what they want to do, yeah, that's what we're going to do.
I love it. The Pink Panther will be the next mascot that we have. Maybe I don't know about that. But anyway, just throwing it out there. Oh, that's great. Well, there you go. We're leaving with a little nugget. I did shout as the girls were going out. I did wish Claudia Winkleman good luck, but Emma Marlowe was so focused she did not even laugh. So Paula, just for your reference, when the girls went out to Zimbabwe, they all played traitors. And Emma Marlowe, one of the girls, is apparently a mean Claudia Winkleman. So she has the wig and everything. But yeah, she certainly wasn't a traitor for Durham yesterday. But listen, sadly, we are well out of time. I know that we do have a couple more questions. Actually, very quickly, I'll ask this one. Both Marcus and Danny, one of you could answer. What impact, from Richard, what impact do overseas pros like Susie Bates have? When you look at what Susie's innings was like yesterday, was it 93 runs she got on the board for us? So what impact have the international pros had?
Go on, Gaffy, you signed up.
There's many reasons why you're recruiting overseas play. Obviously, performance and bringing performance is obviously key, and Susie did that unbelievably well yesterday. But someone like Susie, who's got 20 years experience of international cricket, just recently won a World Cup. It's all the stuff behind the scenes which is going to add tremendous value to our squad, to our development of our players and our team. She's not here just to make runs and to go home. She's here to leave her own legacy within the group, to make a huge difference and impact within our environment. And she's done that within a very short space of time, just in her natural character. Danny mentioned earlier, the squad is just full of great people, great humans. And that's something that Danny and I were very conscious of when recruiting and building our squad. And it's very evident when you look at the environment, you walk into that changing room. Alison, you've experienced it mingling with the players. They're just great people. And someone like Susie is someone that's adding to the environment, who's another great human. And that's so important. And you get that right, that fundamentally has the greatest impact, and we expect her to do well. She's not going to make runs every time, but she certainly made an impact first game and set her own bar very high.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, we'll take 93 every time if she's going to do that. But I don't know if it was you or Ryan had said to me she's a South Islander, so the weather won't faze her at all. It's pretty much like New Zealand, South Island, in the northeast. Well, listen, sadly, we are out of time. I'm so conscious that Paula needs to be on 5 Live in about 3 minutes talking about the London Marathon preview show. So tune in off the back of this. There is just a minute just to say, if any of our audience do want to pop any suggestions for future topics of the webinar into the Zoom chat, and for any questions that we didn't get to, we will try and answer on social and share through the Women's Cricket Network portal. Please don't forget our next Durham Women's game this Sunday, the Blaze. No better way to round off your weekend. I would suggest pop London Marathon on the iPlayer on your phone, watch or put it in the ears, because I'm on 5 Live, Paula's on telly, and then you've got the cricket in front of you. What better Sunday? And then the first T20 Blast home game is June the 1st. A recording of tonight's webinar will be available on the Durham Cricket YouTube channel. The link will be emailed to you this evening. And our next webinar will be May the 27th with special guests to be announced. Guys, thank you so much, Danny, Marcus and Paula, for all your insights and your contributions. As always, it's flown by. We haven't got a chance to chat to you half as much as I'd have liked, but a huge thank you. And to all the team behind the scenes at Durham Cricket pulling this together, a huge thanks to them as well. So have a lovely evening, everyone, and get yourselves onto 5 Live now and listen to Paula talk about who's going to win the Elite Women. It's not you, Danny, by the way. All right, and I look forward to seeing you both do London Marathon in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.